Hi, I'm Voosh. If you know me, you know me. If you don't, you don't. I've been playing this game a long time. Everyone says they've played the game for 10 years, so let's just stick with a long time. I want to talk about TF2 as of today, July 9th, 2024. The game we all love, which seems to come with the prescription for Ritalin these days. It's drained our dopamine, yet as players and creators, we still buy and make items for a game that Valve shows up sporadically for, and we blame other projects on their attention. Despite this, I'd say, like with a few others, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of this game, just as you all should be. What can be done about TF2 right now? What has been done? Should we stay or walk away? These questions are ever present right now more than ever. It feels like TF2's trajectory is intriguing. Valve briefly addressed the bot crisis, but it feels like it won't last long. I've already recently seen more cheaters in pubs than sense, so maybe it was just a ban wave for the bots versus normal cheaters. It's receiving good publicity that after Outcry, we even got Germa and Star to show up for old-timey bits and banter. So Valve continues to ban bots and some cheaters, but issues still persist. The community echoes with diverse opinions. Some call for a boycott until Valve improves, highlighting the lack of QA since Jungle Inferno quality assurance. Others embrace these new VScript game modes and updates, with the belief that they inject life and evolution. This divide resembles political discord. Traditionalists cherish TF2's old school charm and map styles, resisting strong, drastic changes. Conversely, innovators advocate for new modes with the aid of VScript and in-map source mod, and encourage the ever-evolving art style of the game, citing their role in the game's longevity. This clash extends to the TF2 team's handling of community content, where quality varies case by case until picketing. Modern updates seem to bring in old items far and few between, yet everything feels too pixie-choosy for this game. As of last year's summer update, Cashworks is an interesting old-school community map that I would say certainly is not timeless, yet remains a classic because of how dated it is and how it's grandfathered in by community servers. A lot of people don't vibe with it though. Old heads know how it works, new players remain confused. CTF Harp was added last winter update. It's a tricky case. The map was made in 2009 and people love it. Some people don't understand how to play it and new players remain confused. You get the idea. It's like a triangle of joy, confusion, and anger that constantly rotates depending on the age of the map, the quality, etc. It's a geometrical, it's like a Rubik's Cube of problems that Valve is constantly trying to solve. I think there are so few maps that reach this simplicity of enjoyment for a lot of players because they just lack not necessarily the innovation to be provocative enough to understand their linearity, but more so it's too much. The best example of a modern TF2 map that I think checks, by modern I mean like recent update, that checks all boxes is probably Shark Bay. Koth Shark Bay. It feels like a premier Valve map. You can kind of view it in the same light as the Scream Fortress Doomsday that came out. It's a little glitchy because of the 64-bit update as of recent, like you can tell with the skybox, but this map plays and feels like something you could spend 45 minutes on just like old servers. I don't mind it at all. If we had the same kind of intentional QA that old updates received, not necessarily for the sake of lack of content or bloat of maps or hats, but for the sake of quality over quantity, we're left with some issues. So on top of the QA issue, there's also the lack of community updates since the Invasion update of 2015, which was a debacle that exemplifies my point entirely. It left many creators unpaid, the head honcho of the project getting away with a lot of money, and pissing on Valve's community trust till the end of days. How do we know this? Despite such setbacks, communities like Potatoes.tf thrived, filling in Valve's gap of MVM content and neglect. The Potato.tf team ended up getting a trip to Valve, and a community Q&A was asked of the TF2 team at the time, with a lot of issues that talk about the game. Two mainly, for my point. The first in their case was MVM was never going to receive attention from Valve again. because they're just done with it. Which is really depressing because if you look at the workshop, there is so much MVM content. There is MVM content that could go around for the end of days. Australiums, maps, people even make unique waves. The potato.tf team could even curify it, but that leads to the other issue with Valve's stance on community-initiated updates. Which, to summarize, not no longer takes free community updates for TF2. Existing projects aim to go official, largest no-go. They've got two main ways to make updates nowadays. Generic ones like Gunmetal or Tough Rate that just pop out of nowhere. They perhaps items for cases and not Theme updates like Jungle First Reporters are a little different. They have community for stuff, they focus on mission. Valve wants to run these teams in case themselves to not use folks trying to run private updates just action. They always announce the theme ones, but the generic ones just show up that way. This has actually kind of changed to where the only updates, as we're all aware, is only Scream Fortress and Smiths. But anyway, after the Valve stance on things, people felt these were too high and dry, and there were attempts at change in the game. Remember the Uncle Dane removed random crits rebellion and saved TF2 that Valve did notice and failed at resolving the bot issue with. Then there was the Mappers Rebellion, because the maps are the main cow for TF2 right now. No new maps, no reason for people to play. How is this true? Because when all the mappers got together under a banner and asked Valve politely for their maps beyond tacky Christmas and Halloween themes to get in, day one, the TF2 team buckled and said, "We got an update-sized update coming at ya." They did what happened with the heavy update and neutered the sentence to be another holiday update. And when it came out, it was fun, but as it stands, where we are with TF2 updates and the game, there's no more hope that we're ever going to get another big update. Anyway, I think and hope that was a fair summarization to get the layman up to speed. For my opinions on the issue, I cherish TF2's old school feel on the days of community servers and of old school quick play servers where you can only play like a map type. The magic endured despite Valve's missteps. The game's core, with its quirks and community bonds, remains its most compelling feature to me. As I mentioned earlier, I have some solutions I think we can all agree on or debate on how to agree on. But again, it's like flicking boogers at a fan and hoping one makes it through without getting stuck or blowing away. That was gross, I'm sorry. My three ideas are straightforward. The first is closely tied to another idea I'll discuss later. Valve needs better QA, which I think everyone, to some extent, can agree on. This has generally improved recently. In my opinion, most items since Gunmetal haven't looked that great. Some are mere gimmicks meant to annoy people with, like the banana hat, while others are decent hats that fit the game's theme and are simple enough, right?
Shut up!
Alright, I know that's not true for everyone. Some people enjoy the wackiness and absurdity of TF2's crazy loadouts and items, and that's fair. I don't have to like it, as much as I don't like it, but it's fair to play the game how you want. However, to some extent, we can all agree that the 2020 to 2021 crates were really bad, and Valve needed to step up their game, and some of the hats later on were better, making people happier to own them. My second idea ties into this by focusing on what kind of items people prefer. In my opinion, I've noticed that people tend to prefer old school hats, items from before Gunmetal. These hats are often chosen over newer hats unless they're the very cheap, like 13-cent community market items that you can buy with the Steam $5 you're forced to get because you can't get less than $5, right? And they simply look better due to the QA at the time, right? All these items that came in the game, because there was intention at that time. What's funny also is if you ever look at like Workshop Unusual Effects, you notice they either have the unusual cap, which is ironic because only the creator's going to get that hat with the effect, or they use old school items, like they'll use the soldier stash, they'll use hats from before Gunmetal, which is just interesting, right? So why not add those hats back? I propose simplifying things. Valve should reintroduce old school crates, or at least a vintage crate, making all hats and items from these crates craftable. They could even throw in another all-class melee weapon for good measure with the crate, just to cheer people up. While I understand the trade-up system has its place, adding more craftable items, old school crates would surely pique community interest. Plus, limiting these crates to items predating Gunmetal would provide valuable data that Valve could then determine on what hats actually fit the game if they are still confused, if there's this debate that if the community debate is not enough for them to go off of and in adding both. It's also a solution to both, simply that you can add the newer, more evolutionary stuff in the newer cases, and the old school crate could have all the older themed items. There's your data. My final idea is straightforward and likely something we can all agree on. I hope, this one at least. Valve releases contracts every year for Halloween. They could simply expand the system, either by adding more maps to the contractor or incorporating a new section into the contractor for the yearly updates, and repeating this process. The Jungle Inferno contractor has been around for 7 years, since 2017. It's fast approaching its decade-old anniversary. It's been around long enough, and I think there are plenty of civil servant factory new war paints in case you want one. All I'm saying Valve needs to do is replicate what they do with Scream Fortress with their seasonal contracts, but for a summer update. They could introduce a new contractor with the same contracts that the Jungle Inferno one had, but they change the prizes and the destinations. So you change the maps to the summer maps, and you change the prizes to new community war paints that can either add or be bought with blood money, or you can add them as prizes. They could even update the system to retain blood money and keep old school items in the gift shop available in said shop while adding the new war paints to the update. Provided they pass QA and fill the game's aesthetic, people would be ecstatic about this. I know they would. Contracts fit TF2 perfectly, and the best part of it is it wouldn't require Valve much work at all. Again, every prize, everything they need is in the workshop, and they already do it for Halloween every year anyway. They'd essentially be doing what they already did for Scream Fortress, and players would appreciate the fresh, quality content. All it takes is that discerning eye. In conclusion, TF2's future depends on Valve's responsiveness and the resilience of its community. Despite challenges, its enduring charm and passionate player base ensures its legacy, whether through vintage updates or community initiatives. TF2's evolution lies in honoring its past while embracing innovation.